The findings of the recent Inclusive Society Institute GovDem Poll undertaken by IPSOS in June 2023 shows that the ANC's support has dropped quite significantly from 2015. The party's support dropped from 63% in 2015 to only 33% in June this year. The combined opposition rose from 21% to 48% over the same period. These are the poll outcomes for all South Africans eligible to vote in an election. Daryl Swanepoel, the CEO of Inclusive Society Institute, joins us now virtually to chat more about this. Mr. Swanepoel, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Well, support for the ANC dropped from, 63% in 2015 to 33% in 2023. So that's a huge loss. What's the rate of the accuracy of the IPSOS poll? I mean, especially given the small proportion of respondents.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say that this is one of the biggest polls that are run in the country. It is 3,600 respondents. It is done across all 9 provinces. It's done in their home languages on a face-to-face basis in their houses. But the 33%, however, is not the full story. Our conclusion is that when one analyzes the data more deeply, it is our view that the ANC will continue to lead a government post the 2024 elections, either on their own or in coalition, because the ultimate finding of the poll is that the ANC will get somewhere between 48 and 53% of the vote, depending on the voter turnout. On a low voter turnout, they will get 53%. On a medium voter turnout, 48%, and on a high turnout, 50%. We believe the medium turnout is the more realistic one.
Where is the poll conducted, Mr. Swanepoel? I mean, you mentioned respondents. Who are these respondents and how are they selected?
They are ordinary South Africans, which the data company recruits throughout the country. They're ordinary South Africans and they recruit them from across all the demographic groups of the country, be it based on race, be it based on age, be it based on economic status. So it's a good mixture of, it's basically a mirror of the South African society as a whole.
Now, the commentary goes further to say the combined opposition rose from 21% to 48% over the same period. So, according to you, these percentages don't tell the full story. But what exactly is the full story?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question. So the 33% is the number of respondents that have openly indicated that they are going to vote for the ANC. But there are 3 very important words here: eligible voters, registered voters, and turnout. So the 33% is of eligible voters. That's all South Africans over the age of 18.
Okay.
Now, they included in that figure, the 33% is 33% of 100%, because included in that figure is 19% of South Africans that said that they're either not going to vote, they don't know who they're going to vote for, or they refuse to say. So we have to do some calculations. The first instance, we need to eliminate those voters that said that they're not going to vote, because obviously on election day, they're not going to pitch up at the polls. Secondly, we have to allocate those voters that say they don't know or they refuse to say. So that is done by means of an algorithm which determines what are the characteristics of the average ANC, DA, or EFF voter, whatever the case may be. And what are the opinions that they normally have. And then this is then applied to the don't knows and won't says and allocated on that basis to the various parties. The second thing that one must bear in mind is that there are 43.4 million eligible voters, but there are only 26.2 million registered voters. And the profile of the registered voters looks completely different to the profile of the eligible voters. Because we know, for example, that the youth are completely underrepresented in the registered voters because they have been reluctant to go and vote, or to register. They've been slow to go and register. So one then has to adjust the eligible voter data to registered voter data. And when one does that, then one comes to a figure for the ANC of 43%. If one then, but that is the second element. The third element, of course, is turnout. And we know that if there's a high voter turnout, it tends to favor the governing party. But if there's a low voter turnout, it tends to benefit the opposition parties. So we've looked at what are the tendencies, what are the voting trends under various voting scenarios. And in doing that, we then determine that the ANC will rise to around 48 to 53% of the vote. The Democratic Alliance will get around 20% of the vote. The EFF will get about 17% of the vote. Those are the largest parties. So those figures show us, if that is true, those figures show us that at a national level, it should be a pretty clear picture that the ANC will govern either on their own, they'll get an outright majority on their own, or they will only need a small political party to join them in the coalition. But it is pretty clear that the ANC should, if an election will be held tomorrow, and remember, if an election is held tomorrow, there's still a long time to go before the election, and things can change, but then the ANC should lead the government post 2024 election.
Now, Mr. Swanepoel, I see that there's a slight difference in numbers, and your numbers are a little bit behind since this is a June poll. And after the November registration weekend, the IEC has come out to say that eligible voters are 39.7 million, while yours says 42.3 million South Africans are eligible to vote. Does that make a difference in the bigger picture?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't make much of a difference. We have 43 million. This is per Stats SA figures. 43 million eligible voters and around 27 million registered voters, and that figure has gone up somewhat after the polling, after the registration weekend, by about 1 million. But it's not going to make a major impact on these figures. I just want to add one thing, and that is that whilst the ANC should lead the government at the national level, it is clear that we are heading for coalition governments in at least 2 provinces, possibly 3 provinces. In the Western Cape, the DA will lead either on their own or in coalition. In Gauteng, it looks like that it could go either way, depending on the final results. But it could go either to the ANC coalition-led government or a multi-party charter government. And in KwaZulu-Natal, it is still wide open. The data doesn't show that it's an easy coalition for any of the 2 sides. It could go either way.
Now, there's also suppositions made, such as eliminating those respondents who indicated that, they didn't know which party they would vote for, and those unregistered respondents, and those that indicated that they would not vote at all, which is almost 13 million in number. So, of course, that's a huge number. And since registration as well as the electioneering period is now open, what are the chances of swaying potential voters?
Well, I think the important thing is to get as many people to register between now and when the voter roll closes. So I think it is important to go out there, and the message is that in this election coming, every vote will count. This election stands the chance to change the political dynamics in South Africa, and we need to enthusiastically encourage all voters, all eligible voters, to get on the voters' roll. Don't complain when things don't go right and you have not exercised your vote.
Yes,
complain if you have exercised your vote. But for that, you need to be a registered voter.
Sure. And what about the Democratic Alliance? I mean, some have suggested that parties such as the Patriotic Alliance have made such inroads that the DA may have it tough in the coming elections.
In our results, the Patriotic Alliance doesn't register significantly. We have allocated votes to the ANC, the DA, the EFF, the IFP, Action South Africa, ACDP, and Freedom Front Plus. And all the other parties, including the Patriotic Alliance, fall in what we call other parties of only 4%. So at a national level, the Patriotic Alliance is not going to be a significant player. They may and most probably will get a few members of parliament in, but they're not going to be a significant player. They may become important if you're looking for one or two small parties to form a coalition. They may then become an important player. But as a major player on their own, that does not appear to be the case.
All right, Mr. Daryl Swanepoel, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Well, no, thank you very much. Appreciate it.